Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we'd have a little bit of a discussion on why as humans we seek escapism. Whether that's through literature, film, video games, why as humans we have this desire to escape from reality. So this whole topic stemmed from the thought that we are all asked repeatedly, oh, why do you enjoy reading? Why do you read? Why do you enjoy doing this? And a lot of the time, all of us, myself included, answer, oh, I read for escapism. I read to escape from reality and escape from mundane life and experience new worlds. So what is it that drives this desire to seek out new stories and seek out these other worlds? I've been trying to look into what causes this. I will preface this by saying that I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a professor of language or literature. So these are all thoughts that I have come up with. I have done research, so all articles that I have used to gather my arguments will be linked down below if you want to look into this further, and I would really love to hear your thoughts on this topic. I have split this up into 3 sections. We have the psychological reasonings behind our decisions to seek escapism. We have the history of fantasy and how that drives the desire to escape, and also what this might mean for the future and what the future will look like in the form of escapism. So to start us off, looking at the psychological side of what drives us, I think there's 2 reasons for this. So part of me is thinking that, is it part of just human nature in general? We constantly desire what we can't have. That magic is something that we as humans will never be able to experience. Unfortunately, I wish that we could, but it's something that we can never have. And so we are constantly trying to strive for it. And by reading these fantasy experiences, we are giving ourselves a chance or a peephole into what magic could be like. Yeah, and it's something that will never be possible because as humans, we always desire to have what we can't have. I mean, even with something that is a real world thing. So currently we can't travel. So maybe you are looking into traveling to Greece and you want to read books all about Greece because you can't go there. And so you're trying to live your life, or you're trying to live your best life by reading about Greece because you can't go to Greece. The other sort of psychological side is comfort. So a lot of the time, reading and escapism is a comfort and a healing act for us as humans. So there is studies that have been done which say that distraction and this form of escapism is really good for us as humans and for our mental health. So we are better equipped to deal with our real world situations if we have had this moment of distraction and we've had this time to reflect on our lives without having to focus on that constantly. A lot of our worries they happen for a moment. You may be worrying about something, but the next day that worry is over. And so this form of distraction, by being able to escape into another world, stops you sort of ruminating on it constantly, which is very healthy. So it's a distraction and a form of pain relief. And there are studies that say that, that distraction is a form of pain relief and can help with both mental and physical pain. And so it really helps with our ability to manage stress. So you can sort of see that although we might not consciously realise that this is helping our mental health, that it really does help us as humans to detox from our daily life. It sort of does make you think, though, that if we are happy in our lives, then, and if people are really happy, do they seek escapism less? And I don't think that is the case. I think we all seek escapism, whether you're happy or unhappy in your life. I don't think there's much of a difference between your level of happiness and your desire to escape, because potentially you may be happy in your life right now, but who knows what's happening in your subconscious and what past traumas or past issues are still there in your subconscious. So then looking at the history behind fantasy and how our desire to escape might have developed over time, and it might be something that's growing and evolving and changing. Fantasy and literature has been around for many, many years. It's not a new thing, but it's new in the terms of the way it is represented now. So looking at history, there has been fantasy, there have been the myths and the fables, there have been like the Chanson de Geste, there's been Aesop's fables, there's been the Arabian Nights and the fairy tales. The genre has developed as it has gone on, moving into like the 19th century and things like the Gothic and the Roman Noir, and then moving into the present day and how it has evolved. So modern fantasy, as the way we think it today, sort of originated following World War II and the rise of authors such as Tolkien, C.S. Lewis and Lewis Carroll. And actually, looking at the dictionary, the term fantasy didn't come into the dictionary until 1949, so it is a relatively modern term. Taking Tolkien, who is, I guess, he sort of revolutionised the genre of fantasy. And is it that it's a sort of education for us, that we are experiencing a form of enlightenment and we're living in like the renaissance of fantasy literature because of him? And it's sort of been like a snowballing effect that he created The Lord of the Rings, and since then it's as though the floodgates have been opened, and so our brains are now thinking, oh, what about all these things? And he was the catalyst into the new form of the fantasy genre. His works is so much of a reflection on World War II that both him and C.S. Lewis, although they were seen as like Oxford dons, they had experienced World War II, they had experienced the trauma of the trenches, and a lot of their works reflect upon the real world events of World War II and propel that into a fantasy world, so it becomes easier to be able to process these traumas and the need for release from these horrors. And so their books have like elements of reality and messages that we as humans are much more capable to process in the form of fantasy and literature, that we're able to see these patterns and see them more clearly, whereas opposed to someone giving you a lecture, you can sort of see it in a much more digestible format. When looking at this, these fictional works are like a window through which we as individuals are able to view historical lessons, and they are lessons. So you can argue that the genre is developing to reflect current events. So this moves into like my third heading, which is, what does this mean for the future, and how is our escapism going to change as the world develops? And you can really see how fantasy and literature is really impacted by real world events. So what does this mean? Like with with COVID and the pandemic going on now, we haven't had such a global situation since World War II. So what does this mean for literature? Like, how is it going to evolve as the years go by? I mean, we don't know yet because you can't look into the future. But what does this mean going forward? Because new genres are constantly coming up. Grimdark fantasy is a relatively new term. The same with like the paranormal romances, like that is all relatively new, that came about in the last, 30 years. That these sorts of genres didn't exist prior to that. So what does this mean going forward? Like, how are we going to develop, and how is our current reality going to be impacting the forms of escapism that we seek in our literature, and how are we going to see our real world situations reflected through literature? I can't answer that, but I think it'd be very interesting to see whether there is much more works that deal with like repression and being stuck in a situation, or stuck in that form of repression of someone. I don't necessarily think that works are going to focus more on pandemics. I think there's going to be more of a symbolic factor to that. So there is probably a lot more to this topic than what I have discussed just now. I haven't touched on the imagination and why we seek to imagine things, and how the imagination works. So I'm sure there is a lot more to it than what I have here. Again, I will link all the articles that I have used down below. If you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. I feel as though this is like a bouncing block for other discussions and other topics. I would really like to see how other people view this, because I'm sure that there are ideas that I haven't even considered. If you enjoy this content, then please let me know, because this did take me quite a bit of time to think about, and it's not quite as easy as just sitting down with a bunch of books. So let me know if you enjoy these discussion videos and if you would want to have more of them. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!